The Lunaverse, Episode 3 by Rainbow Double Dash, helping Hands, Chapter 9, Paper Cut. Trixie stared intently at the papers that had been given to her by Regal Tome. Regal Tome alternated between staring intently at the 4-page translation, double-checked by glitter scrolls and triple-checked by fast volumes, and glancing at Lyra, who was still standing her full towering height over him. Forelegs once more crossed over her barrel, tapping out a rhythm of 5 quick beats. "I don't know what you're looking for," Tone said after a moment. "It's not like you could read zebra to know whether or not I or my—" The glare that Trixie fixed Tone shut him up. Her hoard glowed as he levitated a quill, inkwell, and sheet of paper over to her, then began scribbling down some instructions before turning to Bonbon, who was busy staring down glitter scrolls and fast volumes. The latter had made the mistake of threatening to bring legal action against the three of them for assaulting them. Bonbon had started laughing at that, though she had apparently stopped very quickly, and without trying to harm any pony at least. To tell the truth, it disturbed Trixie to no end. Note to self, she thought, do not ever stress out Bonbon, ever again. Also, get her help. All right, Trixie said, trotting over to Bonbon with the translated spell. She also telekinetically grabbed a quill, inkwell, sheet of paper, and started transcribing the ingredients. When she was finished, she handed them over to the Earth Pony. 2 flights down, you'll find a basement with a pony named Hexnode. He's the royal apothecary, and is in charge of the castle's stock of magical ingredients. Everything we need to cast a counterspell should be there. Bonbon nodded, taking the sheet of paper into her hose and looking over the ingredients. And he'll just let me have them. He'll just be happy that a mayor is in the same room as him. Ugh. Trixie grimaced. Don't mention me. Even if he asks, just say that one of these idiots needed to raise reagents. She waved a hoof to the 3 so-called translators. Bonbon nodded, though she couldn't help but give Trixie a sidelong glance as he did. Somebody else you brought an ice palace on top of? That was you? Fast Volumes demanded. Trixie ignored her. No, she told Bonbon. Look, it doesn't matter. Just keep moving. Sooner or later, some pony might come in here, then see Lyra, then there'll be more craziness! Bonbon rolled up the paper, taking it into her mouth before setting off. Once he was gone, she turned back to Lyra. Nearly there, she promised, provided these idiots did everything right. Princess Luna will be hearing of this assault, Glitter Squirrel said, in no uncertain terms. I don't care if you're her student. She won't stand for assault happening within her own castle. How about chemically translating? Trixie asked. More than a few of those spells are curses, you know. What if I had cast one on Lyra, and she ended up seriously injured or dead because of you 3? Curses aren't real, Fast Volume said, turning her nose up at the thought. They're just ignorant Earth Pony misconceptions about how magic works. Lyra looked like she was about to kick her, not the least of which due to Fast Volume's tone of voice conveying everything the pony thought about Earth Ponies, which Bonbon happened to be. Magical effects that cause lingering pain or discomfort or otherwise produce unwanted effects for the recipient, Lyra said, leaning forward. Fast Volume shied away. Those exist. It might as well be curses. But they're not somehow different from other spells, Regal Tome ventured, looking back at Trixie. And it doesn't matter. Princess Luna will hear about this, and you'll be banished. Trixie was impressed by Regal Tome's sense of self-importance. Clearly, there was nothing wrong with his self-esteem. Nah, I don't think so, she noted. More like chewed out. I've been chewed out before. And what do you think she'll do to you for turning Lyra to that? She leaned forward. Because that's not my fault, right, Lyra? Casting the wrong spell? Lyra asked. No. Trixie smiled a little at that, grateful for the reassurance, before looking back to Regal Tome, Vast Volumes, and Glitter Scrolls. The 3 were looking at Lyra, or rather, looking through her, as though they could see how incensed Luna would be with them. Perhaps, Glitter Scrolls ventured, maybe we won't say anything? And you won't either? Call things even? Lyra pointed that, looking to Trixie, who had a hoof to her mouth, before the unicorn trotted away, toward the window, looking out over the city of Canterlot, motioning for Lyra to join her. She did, glaring at Trixie. "You can't seriously be considering that," she said in a low voice. "Those three shouldn't be allowed to look at zebra books, never mind translate them." Trixie started. "Oh no, I agree," she whispered back. "Just let them think we agreed to it, though. Then, when they try to bring up us attacking them, Luna will think they're exaggerating to try to cover their flanks, which will make them look worse, and will help get me off the hook, at least a little." Lyra considered. That's evil." "Yes, I like it." Trixie raised an eyebrow. "Really?" she asked. "I thought you had some kind of problem with it." "Not really. Not after the day I've had." The two turned back to the unicorn scholars. "Okay," Trixie acquiesced. "What's Lyra's opinion again? We'll be even. A unicorn pony," she quickly added, as she trotted back over to the table where she left the spell, and started memorizing the magic words the old-fashioned way, being too tired to even consider casting her photographic memory spell. She oddly wondered, as she did, what the spell had been mislabeled as in the original book. This reminded her. "Oh, and one more thing," she said, looking up from her work. "I also want a translated copy of a spell that is called The Truth is a Scourge, and one that will turn a rooster into a hen." The three scholars stared at her. "Don't ask, just do." Bonbon stared at Trixie as she returned an hour later, having acquired a small saddlebag and all the ingredients that her list had specified. She didn't look equicidal. She didn't look angry. She looked bemused. Kind of the same look she had affixed Trixie with the earlier day, back when Lyra had found out that Trixie was, "Oh no." Trixie intoned, "I," Bonbon said as she removed her saddlebag, looking at, "had a nice chat with Hexnode. He's a pleasant little stallion, isn't he?" "No," Trixie stated firmly. "Now, I can say that you were in the castle," Bonbon pressed on, "but I did mention Ponyville, and wouldn't you know it, he asked after you, Trixie." "No," Trixie said again. Lyra, on the other hoof, leaned forward, one brow raised. "Really? That sounds awfully friendly of him, Trixie." Bonbon pressed on, tapping her front hooves together as she looked at Trixie. "And you'll never guess how he knows Trixie. Did you know that Trixie's been to the Grand Galby Gala 5 times?" "No, no, 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 no." "Yeah, she mentioned it," Lyra stated before her eyes widened. "Oh, I think I see where this is going." Bonbon nodded enthusiastically. "And the first time she was convinced that she couldn't go alone, that she had to have a date, and at the time Hexnode was the apprentice of Pachythery, and even though he knew it was only because she couldn't ask some pony named Edelhertzie because he wasn't around. Who was Edelhertzie, by the way? He sounded quite forward." "No, no, 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 shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." "So Trixie asked Hexnode," Bonbon finished before looking at Trixie. "He seemed quite enamored of you, Trixie." Trixie was bright red, though whether from embarrassment or anger, neither Lyra or Bonbon could tell. "And," she said through gritted teeth, "he smelled bad. His suit was tacky beyond belief, and he clearly expected to. He wanted to with me. Gah! I ditched him as fast as I could and just hid out in the royal garden for the rest of the night." Bonbon put a hoof to her mouth, hiding a churl. "Oh, come on now," Bonbon said. "It doesn't seem so bad. I'm sure the smell is just from all the reasons he has to deal with every day." She wrinkled her nose, though I admit it was distinctive. Trixie stuttered. "Ugh, it was a mistake. I've gone alone to the gala every year since then." She looked between Lyra and Bonbon as she walked up to the shuckled saddlebag and opened it, pulling out the various reagents and ingredients that Bonbon had required. "Can we please not discuss it, and instead turn Lyra back into a pony now? Maybe?" "If we have to," Lyra said with a false sigh, joining Trixie as the two of them removed and inspected over each ingredient. Lyra paused a moment as she did. looking at her paws and flexing the claws on them a few times. You know, she said, picking up the list of ingredients and comparing it to what was on Hoof, double-checking it. I think I'm actually used to these things now that I figured them out. I think I was actually better with my Lyra than I was out with my hose now that I got the hang of— Ow! Lyra dropped the paper from her paw, staring at one finger, the longest one in her right hand. There was a thin line on it now, seeping a tiny amount of red blood. It was nothing major, but— Ow, 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 ow! Why does this hurt so much? She stuck her finger in her mouth, sucking on the wound. Trixie raised a brow. Did you cut yourself? With paper. Yes! And it hurts like— Ow! Okay, forget it. I hate hands! Once more, Lyra was covered, head to toe, but for her mane, in paint. This time, rather white than black. She stood in the center of the magic seal. A triangle of salt inside a square of coal dust, inside a pentagon of sand, inside a circle of earth. Surrounding the circle at 10 points were 10 tall candles, made from beeswax, each of them lit. Quartz stones sat at the foot of each candle, while Trixie used a bowl filled with purified water to splash Lyra as she circled her 3 times. Lyra, having recovered from her paper cut, had the 2 longest fingers on each hand crossed. She didn't know why, as she shifted and shifted uncomfortably in the circle, hoping against hope that this nightmare would soon be over. She glanced at Bonbon, who was standing well away from Trixie, her mare friend's eyes focused on her own. She offered a thin-lipped, hopeful smile, as did Bonbon. The scholars were also watching, apparently eager to see zebra magic at work. At length, Trixie finished her circling of Lyra. She had dispelled the enchantment in her cape and hat. Now wore both again. She glanced at Lyra, grimaced for a moment, then offered a weak smile of her own. Okay, she said, closing her eyes, rearing up onto her hind legs, while she waved her forelegs around in front of her, as the spell instructed her to do so. Farsi sagu watogo, farsi sagu watogo, silo urigo wa lilo abajo, farsi sagu watogo, farsi sagu watogo, kila mahali kawenda yoso kuwinda, kuwimba ma kuroka, kuwafua kuwangwa, kuwanagala, osopirka kafuna, farsi sagu watogo, farsi sagu watogo, hatama ya badada yeska ina samate. The candles flared, the flames of them shooting up several feet tall, though they let out no additional heat, as the rest of the room outside the magic circle that Lyra was in seemed to be visibly darkened. The once and future unicorn hunkered down onto one knee at the sight, looking worriedly to Trixie. She, for her part, had her eyes closed as she wove the spell. Behind her, however, Lyra and the 3 scholars looked on in surprise. The darkening room, it seemed, simply wasn't something that she had been perceiving slowly because she was the epicenter of the spell. Hakuna ishari ya samazo mebele, farasi sago watogongo, farasi sago watogo, ilo sawoji sikoko yako kawara makai, ilo watoji sike yoko kawa makai. Inside the magic seal, the coal dust began to pick itself off the ground and swirl around Lyra. She grimaced as it did, feeling sweat on her body, as it drifted dangerously close to the now much larger candle flames, though after a moment it began contracting, pressing itself to her body and covering her in black spots. Salt was next, wrapping around her body in spirals and complex patterns. Lastly, the simple earth crept along the floor, crawling up her body in another round of complex patterning. Farasi zangu wadogo, farasi zangu wadogo, jeni wakatane sisi yesazam nabomai, farasi zangu wadogongo, farasi zangu wadogongo, menene nenoto insiji mepale, tolozo to kuenda, neneje ni uito dioto kaunga, zati li amadeto, nasabala, farasi zangu wadogongo, farasi zangato wadogongo, orataki mimi kuuna tena. And now, I am going to check out what these words mean on Google Translate. Give me a sec. Rainbow Double Dash, you clever turd. I salute thee. The flames of the candles suddenly died, and the normal light returned to the room. Lyra opened her eyes and saw that she still had a ridiculously small nose, still had paws, she still had those ridiculously tiny toes, on her hoofless feet. Oh, come on! She began, when the quartz crystals suddenly all began to flash bright, painful light, and then pick themselves up and collide with her from all sides. She was certain the speed should have been enough to shatter bone, or she would have been certain anyway, and one of the crystals had not collided with the center of her forehead and plunged her into unconsciousness. Trixie opened her eyes just in time to watch, just like she had the first time at the start of this mess. Lyra's limp form was lifted off the ground, surrounded by electric, sickeningly green light. Bonbon came rushing forward, but Trixie held out a hoof to stop her. "You might not want to look," she said softly. Bonbon glanced at her for a moment, before locking her eyes firmly onto Lyra. After a moment, Trixie did likewise. Lyra convulsed. Wet, sickening snaps came from throughout her body as her bones shifted and twisted. It started at her hind legs, her toes curling in on themselves and fusing together even as the nails on them grew and shifted together as well, blackening as they did so, becoming proper hooves once more. The knuckles on the toes shifted and moved as well, becoming her pasterns and fetlocks, while the tiny ankles of her feet lengthened, becoming proper hocks. Her knees shifted and twisted, traveling up further her leg, and even as her hips' edges seemed to snap and fold, collapsing and becoming not nearly as comparatively wide as her body, shifted to accommodate what would once more be a quadruped rather than a bipedal form. The transformation continued up her barrel and back. From the base of her spine, a tiny tail emerged, which was swiftly covered in sprouting white and seafoam green hair. The fleshy lumps on her barrel were reabsorbed back into her adamant, her teeth presumably appearing back in their proper place, though neither Trixie nor Bonbon checked at the moment, having other things on their minds. While her shoulders did the same twists as her hips had, collapsing forward and shifting. The ripples of the alteration continued down her forelegs, in many ways duplicating the twisting and lengthening of her hind legs. Her hands disappeared at last, becoming normal feet and hooves once again. Lyra's neck, meanwhile, had lengthened, along with her face, her eyes growing in size, her ears traveling up her skull and lengthening. Her nose became her muzzle. Her prominent chin melded more cleanly into her lower jaw. Bursting out from her forehead came her horn. Her mane didn't change as much, but it did sprout additional growth down the back of her neck, nearly to her withers. Even as this occurred, her coat began to reappear, mint green and short, but hiding her paling flesh. She shrank, twisting in place as she did, until she had once more resumed her normal size. The last thing to appear was her cutie mark, appearing much like it did on a foal who had just discovered her special talent, in a flash of light, a growing shape that shifted, realizing itself as a golden lyre. The electric glow surrounding Lyra disappeared, as she collapsed to the floor on her side, curled up into a ball. Bonbon was at her side in an instant, Trixie nearly as fast. "It took her a few minutes to wake up last," Trixie began. Bonbon didn't hear her. She cradled her mare friend's head, her proper pony head at last, in her hooves, leaning down and nuzzling her. "Lyra?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Lyra, can you hear me? Are you okay?" "She's breathing fine," Trixie said, looking Lyra over, constantly running her own hoof across Lyra's back. "Coat feels right. Cutie mark's good. Tail is taily. Hooves look right. Horn." She used 2 hooves to measure Lyra's horn, then compared to her horn. "Short." Lyra mumbled, eyes fluttering open. "Not short. Not taller than you, anyway." "Lyra!" Bonbon exclaimed, pulling her mare friend up to a tight hug. Lyra returned it eagerly. Forelegs hooked around Bonbon's shoulders and withers, head laid across each other's necks. A proper hug, unlike what she'd been able to manage on the train earlier. It didn't last long, of course, as the two pulled back from each other, but only so Lyra's lips could find and sink into Bonbon's own. Eventually, their kiss ended, and Lyra pulled away, waving her hose in front of her face. "Ha!" she said. "Ha! Hooves! Let's see paper cut these, and... She looked up at her horn, and squinted slightly. It glowed gold, as he lifted Bonbon into the air with a yelp. "Ha! And my magic's back on! No more fumbling around with honey jars! I don't know how you do it, sweetie, but me, I could not live without this!" She levitated Bonbon in front of her, and drew her mare friend into another kiss, settling her down slowly as she did so. Bonbon returned it eagerly, breaking it off only when she noticed Trixie was sitting behind Lyra, looking dejected. "Come here," she said, trying out to Trixie. Trixie's eyes widened as her horn glowed defensively, though weakly given how magically exhausted she still was. "No, no, no! Wait! What did I do now? She's back to normal and—" Trixie was cut off when Bonbon embraced Trixie, tightly, but not so tight to suggest malevolent intent. After a few moments, Trixie let out a long sigh of relief, returning the hug, as well as Lyra's when the other one joined in. "I'm sorry, Trixie," she said. I just was so worried for Lyra. Seeing her like that, I didn't know what came over me." She looked Trixie in the eye. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." Trixie grimaced. "Not all of it," she admitted. Bonbon's eyes widened. "Who are you, and what have you done with Trixie Lulamoon?" Trixie just shook her mane and turned to Lyra. "I got you into this mess. I shouldn't have asked you to do the spell today. I'm sorry." "Don't be," Lyra said, though after a moment she considered the day she just had. "Well, do be, but not too sorry. I mean, I agreed to the spell in the first place, so be a little sorry." Trixie nodded. Lyra hugged her again, and she returned it fully. "Besides," Lyra considered, "you may have, sort of, got me into this mess, but you're also the pony who got me out of it." "We helped!" Vast Volumes exclaimed. Lyra blinked, remembering at last that the scholars were there, as she looked to them. The three were standing awkwardly off to the side. Glitter Squirrels looking quite pleased that he had gotten to see the two mares making out, while Wriggle Roam looked a bit green in the face, probably from the transformation he witnessed. Vast Volumes, meanwhile, seemed to be thinking ahead, to the possible tongue-lashing they would receive from Luna later if they weren't careful. Well, they would be receiving anyway, but neither of them had to know that at the moment. "Whatever," Lyra declared, standing on her own four hooves again. Stars above, it felt good to be a quadruped again, turning around to the library's exit. "Come on, Trixie. You said something about us probably being able to stay in your old room for the night?" Trixie nodded as the three mares made their way from the library. "You two can even have my bed," she promised, though she froze after she did. "But there are terms and conditions. I know you two are probably eager to, break in Lyra's restored body, but I rather really, that is, maybe I'll look into getting you to your own room." Lyra and Bonbon laughed at that, even as Trixie shuffled around before following them. "With soundproofing." Dear Trixie. Chapter 10. 1 week later. I have been able to recover the copy spellbook that I have given you originally. It was sitting in our rail stations lost and found, thankfully intact. Having a chance to read it, I can now see what precisely you meant by poor translations and mislabeling. I am fluent in Zebra, but I admit to having been in something of a rush to get under way to Hospital de Griffin when I sent it along to you, so I did not have a time to do any but the most cursory of reviews. Rest assured that Regal Tome, Vast Volumes, and Glitter Scrolls will not be soon reworking in the Royal Library, or indeed Canterlot again, though on that note, I believe that we have a discussion in the near future concerning the proper response to dealing with one's problems, regardless of one's emotional commitment to them. I think our response was entirely proper. Hold on, let me finish. However, I find myself incapable of becoming truly angry with you at the moment, given the personal appeal and testimony I have received from Miss Heartstrings concerning your conduct and efforts to see her show through, no matter the cost of yourself. If some pony had described this situation to me as soon as 3 months ago, I would not have believed them. Your decision to remain in Ponyville was clearly for the best, and I believe you are becoming a better pony because of it. Now, as to Miss Heartstrings' inquiries as to what she had turned into, the Zebra word "bidamu" defies translation into Equestrian, as much as we would have a difficult time translating bear into their tongue beyond merely describing the creature. Based on your description and rough sketch, however, I would posit that Miss Heartstrings was transformed not into a bear, as he believed. I didn't think I was a bear. I just figured I might as well be a bear as long as I didn't have anything else to call me. Bears have tails and fur and muzzles, Trixie pointed out, and are taller. Not all of them. Most of them. But rather a simian, specifically some form of hominin, although what specific species I am uncertain based on your description. However, unfortunately I cannot say much more than that. They were never very common even in Zabrica, and to be completely honest, I thought them to have died out some time ago. Evidently, the zebras remain some knowledge of their existence, however. Perhaps there are pockets of the species yet existent in Zabrica. Certainly, there are zoologists who will be delighted to hear that news and will be eager to journey there, provided that relations with the zebra laces can be normalized. In any event, Trixie, I will leave the examination of zebra magic in different hooves. After your experience last week, I think you have earned a reprieve. Your princess and teacher, Luna. Hominin, Lyra said, wrapping her tongue around the word. Hominian. Weird. From what Luna wrote, I think it's just describing the creatures in general. But then there are specific subgroups, Trixie said, like with ponies or deer. It had been a week since Lyra's worst day ever, as it now was officially titled in her mind. Even if technically she knew there was at least one day in her life that was worse. The most recent longest night, when Corona had returned and kidnapped, among other ponies, Bonbon. That day was kind of just terrible for the whole planet, though, whereas a week ago would have been specifically bad for her above everybody else. The two of them were sitting in Trixie's kitchen, or rather, Lyra's sitting, while Trixie was arranging a magic circle on the floor, albeit one much smaller than the one she had constructed for Lyra. Sitting in the center of the magic circle was a rooster, the former hen of Fluttershy's that Trixie had stolen, specifically. It was in a magical slumber once again. Fluttershy had raised no objections to the rooster's theft. At least none that Trixie had heard from either Ditzy or Rainbow Dash. The latter most certainly would have broken through Trixie's once again repaired window if she had known what Trixie had done. But after spending a week with the thing before considering herself brave enough to try another zebra spell, she was more than eager to get rid of the violent, smelly, ravenous bird. She simply supposed that it would only be proper to return to him, soon to be her, in the same state engendered she had acquired once in future hen in. So, Trixie asked, as he finished setting up the magic circle and looked to Lyra, have you been reaping the rewards of last week? Does the majestic and lovely Heartstrings have ponies knocking down at her door for jobs? No, Lyra said, but just plain Lyra has a few shows scheduled. Trixie grimaced, just plain Lyra. Really? Where's the stage presence, the memorability, the pomp? Lyra frowned. My music is supposed to be able to speak for itself. Sure, it's great, really, it is. But a little showmanship never hurt any pony. Lay yourself up. Your music is basically a product that you're trying to sell, and any sales pony will tell you you need to advertise it well. Lyra frowned as she tried to piece through what she just heard. So, she said, I should dress like you? None! Trixie insisted, rearing up on her hind legs and throwing her front legs wide. You should dress like the majestic and lovely Lyra Heartstrings! Her horn glowed, and a few small, quiet, illusory fireworks were set off. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Yeah, but I'm not doing this. I didn't decide to become a musician for the money. Trixie all but dropped to four legs again, rolling her eyes as she turned back to the rooster. Tell me about it. I can't believe you're not getting paid for that show. Lyra opened her mouth to argue the point. Did thought better of it. Trixie just seemed incapable of wrapping her mind around the idea that Lyra made plenty of money. Actually, she was fairly certain by the end of the year, she'd made more money from shows and concerts and even just informal gigs than Trixie made from her stipend as representative of the Night Court. For some reason, though, she felt it would probably be a good idea just to bite the bit and not tell Trixie that. Instead, let Trixie continue under her delusion that Lyra was in need of financial assistance, or at least marketing assistance. Okay, Trixie said. Now, what an awe as I turn this rooster back into a hen. See, that's how you're supposed to. Trixie turned around to look at Lyra, but then noticed Lyra wasn't behind her anymore. Instead, Lyra was outside, in Trixie's back garden, looking in, but having the glass and wooden door between herself and the zebra spell. Carry on, Lyra insisted from the other side of the door. Trixie sighed. This was going to put a damper on her plans to have Lyra help her with the magic show for the evening time. Well, that was a fun little... Uh, Raindrops, where are you going? Uh, Derpy? Uh, Trixie, would you stop for a moment? Yes. What is it? I'm just curious. What are you girls doing? Where it's the winter wrap-up episode next. Didn't you hear? Didn't you get the schedule? Oh, look. Well, you know. Okay, for this week's webisode, yes, this one has one. We're doing Trixie's winter wrap-up. Enjoy. Trixie's winter wrap-up by Black Belt. Chapter 1. Waste of a Day. Trixie was sleeping sound in her bed, the blankets wrapped around her to keep the cold winter off of her. She was looking forward to a long, restful morning. She intended to stay in bed all day if possible. Then a voice reached her ears. 3 months of winter coolness and festive holidays. Trixie shifted in her sleep. She could have sworn she heard Lyra singing, but that was silly. Trixie kept her eyes shut. We kept all hoosies warm at home. Time for off to work to play. Cheerily? Trixie half attempted to get out of bed for that, but her eyes kept firmly shut, her body in the lying down position. But the food we stored is running out, and we can't grow in this cold. Okay, hearing Carrot Top singing was a little weird, but Trixie was determined to sleep the morning away. And even though I love these clouds, it's time to end the cold. Trixie's eyes sprung open as she sat up in bed. Raindrops singing! She shouted, scarcely able to believe what she had just heard. She looked around the room, hoping to find the source of this impossibility. She then thought for a moment. I must have been dreaming, she convinced herself, and lied back down, intent on continuing her sleep. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. Let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. Trixie sprung out of bed, pulled aside the curtains, and opened the window with such force that it was lucky it did not break. Outside, she saw what seemed to be the entire population of Ponyville, wearing colored vests, doing various chores that, as near as Trixie could guess, involved wrapping up winter. She noticed cheerily singing to her group of foals, her students. The time has come to welcome spring and all things warm and green, but it's also time to say goodbye. It's winter we must clean. We must all help to see what all this through. Here's what every pony does. We'll all do it without magic. We'll do it just because. Trixie was disgusted at how bad that rhyme was. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. Let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. Trixie cursed how easily it was to get that chorus stuck in her head. But then she noticed Dizzy flying up a bit and taking a deep breath. Bringing home the southern birds, a Pegasus job begins, and clearing all the gloomy skies to make the snowing end. Trixie then watched raindrops fly into the air next to Dizzy as he took over the melody. We move the white clouds and we melt the white snow. When the moon comes up, its silver beauty will glow. Trixie vaguely wondered whether the town had planned this before that annoying chorus began again. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. Let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. The crowd of ponies outside seemed to be all pointing to Trixie's right. Trixie followed the crowd's instruction until she came upon Lyra, a pairing singing with some girls. Little critters hibernate under the snow and ice. We wake up all the sleepy heads so quietly in. Then noticed Bonbon sliding up beside Lyra as he took over the melody. We help them gather up their food, fix their homes below. We welcome back the southern birds so their families can grow. Trixie decided to ignore just how much emphasis Bonbon put on the words family and growing before the accursed chorus started up. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. Let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap-up, winter wrap-up. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow's spring is here. Trixie was momentarily distracted by Bonbon planting a giant kiss on Lyra's cheek. and desperately trying to repress all the trauma Bonbon's been responsible for in the months since Trixie had moved to Ponyville, before she heard Carrot Top singing. No easy task to clear the ground, planting on our crops. We'll make sure we have food, even if we work non-stop. Trixie couldn't help but notice Carrot Top giving a death glare, or at least a shoddy facsimile of one, toward Applejack as he sung that line. Carrots, kumquats, celery stalks, and colorful flowers too. We must all work so very hard. It's just so much to do. Trixie couldn't help persist singing along this time. Winter wrap up, as far as our holiday tire. Winter wrap up, 'cause tomorrow spring is here. 'Cause tomorrow spring is here. Trixie yawned loudly. As catchy as this song was, she couldn't let herself be distracted from her ever-important sleep schedule. As she closed the window and thought to herself as she lumbered back to her bed, and now that I've heard all of them sing, I can get back to bed. Don't know why they work so very hard, but waking up I dread. I know they'll manage without me, not like I know the way. I'll just crawl under the sheets and sleep in today, Winter wrap up, let's finish our holiday cheer. Winter wrap up, let's finish our holiday cheer. 'Cause tomorrow spring is here. Trixie ignored the chorus this time as she settled back into bed, before the worst possible thing happened. Some pony knocked on the door. Crap! She thought to herself as she dragged herself from her bed once again, this time levitating her hat and cape out of her closet and donning them as she went to answer the door. She was instantaneously faced with an annoyed, looking politician. "Mr. Representative," the mayor of Ponyville slowly began, "I would expect one of your station to set a good example and show up on time for the start of winter wrap-up." "Why would I need to show up? Winter wrap-up is just the start of spring anyway. Just leave it to the chains team and call it a day." Trixie dismissively waved a hoof, made sure to close the door so she could get back to her precious sleep. The mayor stuck out a hoof, stopping the door's progress. "Mr. Representative, I don't know how things run at Canterlot, but here in Ponyville we don't leave it to some busybody out-of-towners to change the seasons. Ponyville is proud to be one of the few cities left that gets the whole community to pitch out and help out. That means you, Mr. Representative." Trixie was about to argue, but the mayor held up a letter. Instantly, Trixie recognized the writing style upon it. "Luna," wrote the mayor, "a letter." Trixie feared whatever madness was on the letter, as he quickly grabbed it out of the mayor's hose and began to read it. "Let's see. Madam Mayor of Ponyville, Trixie is going to be helping Miss Rarity with her work this winter wrap-up. To apologize for the inconvenience Trixie had caused her for the Longest Night Festival. Trixie has already received a letter detailing as such. However, I feel it necessary to send you a letter as well to ensure that this occurs. Your Princess, Luna Equestria." Trixie was about to argue that, no, she did not receive such a letter, until she felt it. Something in her trademark hat was set upon her head, which a second ago was completely empty. Now suddenly something was in it, as if it had been magically teleported there. Trixie angrily looked off into the distance, and the great city of Canterlot was visible. Even though Trixie couldn't see her, she knew somewhere in that city her teacher was laughing at her. "Better get this over with." "And then you weave the ribbon through the twigs and straw, but not too tightly. Remember that the ribbons need to stand out. Next, but not too much, as Rarity ranted on and on about the finer points of making a nest, Trixie's thoughts could only focus on one thing. "I'm pretty sure I could plead a temporary insanity defense at the trial. Every pony would buy it. Heck, I'm sure even Luna would buy it." "Miss Lunamoon, are you paying attention?" Rarity yelled. "Yes!" Trixie lied. Rarity's eyes narrowed, then took a small smirk came to her face. "Very well, Miss Lunamoon. Prove it." She pointed a hoof at the small table that sat outside her boutique. "Make a nest." "Well, better start prepping that insanity defense," Trixie thought to herself as she slowly walked to the side, bidding farewell to the last, relatively peaceful moments of the day before Lyra's whining would ruin the rest of it. Trixie stared at the materials that sat upon the table. Twigs, ribbons, straw. She desperately tried to recall the directions Rarity gave her. Suddenly, She realized that she hadn't learned anything. So she did what she did best. Improvise! She grabbed twigs, straw, and ribbon with her magic and lifted them into the air, twirling them in the air, and, showing off a bit for once more for Maris, an audience, before bringing the materials together and Miss Lunamoon, I am shocked at your behavior. Rarity shouted, appalled and just a bit angry. Huh? It is tradition of Ponyville not to use magic during winter wrap-up. Trixie laughed. Good joke. Now, watch as I put this nest together. This is not a laughing matter. Tradition must be followed. Rarity insisted. Insanity defense. A deep refuge of Trixie's mind insisted, before she banished the thoughts from her head. With a sigh, she put the materials back onto the table and used her hose to make a nest. This nest is going to be ugly. Then she'll yell at me. This day just keeps getting better and better. Rarity eyed the nest, a discerning look in her eyes. Miss Lunamoon, this nest. Trixie knew the whining was about to start. Trixie stuttered as she prepared herself mentally and physically for the oncoming tirade. It's the best possible nest I have ever seen! How did you do it? A smile lit Rarity's face, her eyes still drawn to the nest. What? Just roll with it. A magician never reveals her secrets. Now, let us make more nests for the birds. It was a few hours later when the first major disaster struck. Oh no! Rarity yelled. Trixie looked, seeing a very distressed-looking Rarity. What's the matter? Trixie asked calmly. Rarity's jaw dropped. Trixie was immediately more serious. How can you be so calm? This disaster will ruin the entire rest of the nest! Trixie was immediately more serious. If the nests are ruined, then Luna will make me help Rarity with something else. Time to pull off the impossible. Calm down, Rarity. What happened? Rarity took several deep breaths as she described what had happened. It's horrible! We've run out of red ribbons! All we have left is green! Oh, such a horrid color! Of all the worst possible things to happen, this is the worst possible thing! Trixie could only stare as a fainting couch ran its way through the front door Carousel Boutique, and planted itself next to Rarity, whereupon Rarity immediately put it to use. Trixie wisely decided not to waste any more time and just get back to making nests, but not before making an opinion of her own. Green looks cooler than red anyway. The sun was slowly beginning to droop down the horizon when all the nests were finally completed. I still say green is ugly, despite how possible you make the nest look, Rarity commented, overlooking the nests that had been made. Trixie was proud to see that her own nest not only looked prettier than Rarity's, but also more. Ha! Take that, you fascinator! Trixie thought to herself, resisting the overwhelming urge to gloat loudly. Well, that's a job well done by both of us. So, since everyone in Ponyville helps out, winter should be wrapped up, right? Trixie asked, now looking forward to enjoying the first night of spring. But Trixie noticed something odd when she asked that question. Rarity's posture seemed to slump. Ah, yes. You weren't there for last year. Or the year before that, Rarity said. Trixie raised an eyebrow. Ponyville hasn't been on time with winter wrap-up for the last 10 years. Rarity admitted. Trixie was about to ask whether she was kidding, but then Trixie looked around. Snow on the ground? Yes. Animals still sleeping? Yes. Clouds in the sky? Yes. Ponies still running around, trying to get things done? Yes. Who's in charge? Trixie asked, very annoyed at the fact that as hard as she had worked that day, and as insistent the mayor, and that backstabbing Luna, was for her cooperation, the nest seemed to be the only thing done on time. You know, I never thought to ask, Rarity said, beginning to wonder about that herself. The two mayors exchanged glances briefly, before the unspoken plan was agreed upon. I'm not the one in charge, the mayor admitted, when the nest team confronted her. They had found the mayor sitting in her office town hall, drinking some bourbon, which Trixie definitely did not consider taking. Then who is? Trixie asked, her annoyance growing. The mayor's answer caused Trixie to bring her hoof to her face. No one is in charge. I just let the ponies do their own thing, and everything works out in the end. The mayor admitted, reaching for another sip from her bourbon bottle. insanity defense. You even have a witness here. You could pull it off. Trixie shook her head, removing the stray thought from her head. Then stared at the mayor. You got me out of bed. Made me work with this crazy fashion mayor. Hey, Trixie ignored the sound of indignation that escaped Rarity's lips. It spoke of how much pride Ponyville had when it comes to making Winter Wrap-Up a community effort. And yet, you've been late for the past decade, and in fact, have no direction whatsoever. Am I correct in this, Miss Mayor? Yes, the mayor answered, clearly nervous. I'm going back to bed. Good night! Well, those two were rather interesting little adventures, weren't they, audience? So let's talk about these two episodes separately. First off, let's talk about the Lunaverse episode proper, Helping Hands. What a hilarious ride that is, huh? I mean, I love how this basically was a flip to the typical Lyra wants to be a human meme, or Lyra desiring hands above all else meme. And at the same time, I think that this was a good adventure to have Trixie and Lyra work off well on each other. I do like the interactions between the two. It's a little bit different than how Twilight and Rainbow Dash are, you know, the nerd and the jock. While Trixie and Lyra are more like two entertainers, but one entertainer doesn't quite understand how the other one works. Trixie thinks Lyra's eternally poor. Because, you know, that's just the way she probably thinks musicians are. And meanwhile, Lyra can see Trixie the same way. This helped develop the relationship, and this story also did well in giving us a chance to see just what Lyra does in her day job. Meanwhile, on Trixie's winter wrap-up, we had a beautiful story of Trixie preventing herself from committing Equestricide. But more than that, we've got a fic that properly demonstrates why sometimes you need bureaucracy and you need Twilight. Because without somebody like that, you tend to F up big time. Also, you gotta admit, for a webisode, this really gave a good insight of just how different Trixie is from Twilight. Twilight leads in, becomes a... And when she sees that everything's about to be delayed, she leads in and does her duty. Trixie does not do that. She is willing to start running. And tell you honest truth, I'm personally with her on that. So, once again, I think this is probably a fun little episode. I think this is a pretty good third episode, as it gives us a chance to interact with these characters. Especially more with Trixie, since she barely had a role. Although, I wonder if this was released as an actual series, if these two episodes would have been run back to back, or if Helping Hands would have been aired first, then Family Matters. Then again, I did read Family Matters before Helping Hands, so. Well, people, you know, that's the end of one Lunaverse story. You know what that means. Time for another multi-chapter fic. Here's the trailer. I hope you all enjoy. Tomorrow, a moment of ultimate happiness. Twilight Sparkle. As at this moment, I hereby dub you as Spike's permanent a moment of unparalleled joy. Yes, you mean it? You and I, we're going to... Yep, every day. From this moment on, I'm taking you under my wing, kid. Oh, this is so great! Of unparalleled friendship. Thank you, girls. This day couldn't have been any better without you. Don't mention Twi. We're always right here for you. Becomes shattered in an instant. I'm sorry, Miss Dash, but we're taking her with us. No, please, I can't go back there. Dash! To save a friend. Skylar's out there. We need to find her. To save a little sister. I'm not going to stop searching until I hunt down every inch of Equestria to bring that kid back home. One must spiral deep into the bowels of Canterlot. Defiant secrets revealed. Tell me, Miss Sparkle, Rainbow Dash, do you even know what that little filly is? Who she's supposed to be? What her true destiny is to become? No, and I don't care. You're just a bunch of fools. A life will be put in danger. Light! Light! No! Spike! What are you doing to him? Let him go! Oh, princesses will fall. I don't know how powerful he is, but I won't let him destroy my kingdom. And lives will be changed. No. No. Spike! Coming soon. Tomorrow, in fact. Longingverse. Project Ascension. I'll see you people there.